They explained the purpose of the sentient milieu and offered the ur-quan membership. The ur-quan recognized the benefits that such a system provided, and once more conquered the hunting beast within themselves, to become cooperative, productive members of the milieu. This lasted for several thousands of years.
And we all know how that turned out. On the evolution point, things don't evolve consciously. They mutate, and the most successful mutations are likely to go on to reproduce, and therefore those mutations will be transmitted down genetically, and yeah, it will go like that. And the interesting thing about humanity and tool use is that the way we evolved, the reason none of our ancestors are around is because our ancestors kind of sucked. I mean, tool use and endurance were the only two strengths we had. If we were caught on the hop by any kind of predator, we'd probably die. It's quite simple. But it was a long-term advantage. Tool use, in that you're able to use tools, of course, which mean a more efficient society. You can do things more efficiently, especially cooking, which reduces the role of the digestive system and means that you have energy to devote to other things, like thinking. And yeah, technology, the ability to use technology is a very significant advantage, but a very long-term one. Perseverance. A human can go days without food, and they just keep walking. They don't need as much water. They can deal with harsh conditions. It's quite incredible, actually. The earliest hunting done by man was not, you know, running around throwing spears or bows and arrows or anything. It was just stalking prey, like an antelope, and keep stalking it until it collapsed of exhaustion. Then you kill it. And that's because men can keep on going, whereas most animals are built around short bursts of activity. Anyway, back to the game.
Just over 20,000 years ago, when your ancestors were learning to chart the course of the moon and stars on animal horns, the sentient milieu spanned 500 light years and included the membership of 100 worlds. Like all other star travelers, they had discovered ruins and relics of a far more ancient culture, which your species calls the precursors. Explorers from many species spent their lives trying to piece together this ancient mystery, but of all races, the ur-quan were the most bold adventurers. Their scouts, flying single ships, penetrated far into uncharted space and landed a million worlds.
Why in the game then?
On one such mission, a young ur-quan made planetfall on a small, life-bearing alien world to identify some anomalous energy readings, occasionally a sign of precursor installations. Instead, the ur-quan found a small, hideous creature, a Dunyary. Before the scout was able to defend itself, the Dunyary creature took control of the ur-quan's mind and commanded the scout to place the Dunyary aboard the ur-quan's ship, along with hundreds of its evil brood. Then the ur-quan returned to the heart of the milieu, landing on its capital planet. Within hours, every resident of the planet was a Dunyary slave. Within a month, Dunyary compelled starships and spread the evil, psychic creatures across the entire milieu.
Yeah.
When the Dunyary took control over the milieu, one race fought back, the taelo. These slow, quiet creatures were silicon-based life forms, but bore little resemblance to the modern Chenjesu.
Wait.
Taelo were natural immunes to the Dunyary psychic compulsion. They were unaffected by the creature's power, and The Dunyary would not permit anyone to exist outside their control. So they ordered the remaining races of the milieu to attack and destroy the taelo home planet. This planet was one of the few milieu worlds located in this region of space. I believe you call their star Delta Vulpeculae. Their home was a moon revolving about the second planet.
Well, we found that shield.
Sad to say that the taelo were indeed eliminated. However, at the time of their devastation, they had completed a device which they thought would give other races psychic immunity like their own. What happened to this device, this shield? It's hard to say. Maybe it was destroyed in the attack on their homeworld. Maybe not.
Maybe it's sitting in the cargo hold of our ship.
In the Dunyary's new empire, the ur-quan were the favored slaves. This is probably because the ur-quan were the most psychically sensitive, the most easily compelled. As the centuries of Dunyary dominance passed, what was once the sentient milieu deteriorated and degenerated into a great galactic gulag.
Gosh.
Alien races which did not serve with the efficiency and speed demanded by the Dunyary were ruthlessly burned from the faces of their worlds. The agents of this genocide were inevitably the Dunyary's favorite pet, the ur-quan. After almost 2,500 years of unrelenting Dunyary control, there were only 4 living member races of the once great sentient milieu. By this point, the Dunyary had used genetic manipulation to
Science.
split the ur-quan into 2 subspecies. The green ur-quan. Scientists, technicians, and administrators who were responsible for maintaining the limited infrastructure of the Dunyary civilization, and the black ur-quan, who filled the ranks of basic laborer and combat soldier. Then, a chance discovery by an ur-quan named Za led to the violent overthrow of the Dunyary slave empire.
Okay, and I think we're coming to the end of the history.
The ur-quan named Za was a green, a researcher specializing in repairing the mental damage inflicted by long-term exposure to the Dunyary's psychic compulsion. By this point in history, the Dunyary had grown lax in their dominance, and on occasion accidentally permitted their slaves moments of self-direction. Za was able to use those few scattered minutes to compose a theory. From its observations, Za realized that when a slave died, the Dunyary disconnected from the slave's mind, lest it too be dragged down to death. Further, the ur-quan scientist uncovered the fact that when a slave underwent great pain, the Dunyary temporarily disconnected, but that the degree of pain had to be extreme, nearly lethal. Za chose its moment carefully. It waited until it was near an open transmission unit. Then, in a short moment of mental freedom, the ur-quan injected itself with a dose of acidic poison, sending incredible waves of pain through its long body. In the few moments before its death, Kazerza was able to wrest control of the transmitter to send word of its discovery across the planet and into space as well. Before the Dunyary knew what was happening, ur-quan everywhere were hacking at their own bodies with chunks of glass, burning themselves horribly, doing anything that would give them the few seconds of freedom necessary to find the nearest Dunyary and crush the bleeding creature. As they gained longer and longer periods of control, the ur-quan developed new tools and weapons to destroy their evil masters. The most gruesome of these devices was the excruciator, a mechanism which was inserted directly into the brain and generated a constant stream of agony. The Dunyary could not bring themselves to make the necessary mental connection with these tortured ur-quan. They were slaughtered by the thousands. The ur-quan slave revolt was won.
He seems to be getting into it a bit, but let's find out where he's going.
When the last ur-quan was free of psychic compulsion, when the last free Dunyary was dead,
Hurrah!
the combined might of the ur-quan starfleets met in orbit above the Dunyary homeworld. They had come together to make two important decisions. First, how to punish the few frightened Dunyary left below on the planet's surface. Second, how to ensure that never again would the ur-quan be made slaves. The first decision was made swiftly. The Dunyary would not be allowed to die. That was too kind a fate. Instead, the creatures would be genetically modified into sub-sentients. They would become dumb animals. These low creatures would be further debased by serving the ur-quan for all eternity in the most demeaning way the ur-quan could imagine, acting as translators, making physical contact with other species, whom the ur-quan now considered grossly inferior to themselves and revolting.
Very Bucks
The
attitude.
second decision, how to ensure their freedom permanently, caused great turmoil.
As we well know by this point, but now we have an objective view on the situation. Well, relatively objective.
Following the successful ur-quan slave revolt, the ur-quan met to decide how to ensure their freedom. The green ur-quan, who called themselves the Kazerza in honor of the ur-quan who triggered the revolt, wished to establish the path of now and forever, which required that all other sentient species must become slaves of the ur-quan or be forever imprisoned beneath an impenetrable force shield. Leading the opposition to this plan was Korra, a charismatic fleet officer. Korra proposed a simpler alternative, the eternal doctrine. Simply put, the scheme called for the systematic eradication of all sentient life in the universe, aside from the ur-quan. Captain, if these positions seem to you extreme or unwarranted,
Well,
you must remember that the ur-quan had been unwilling slaves for millennia, and that each of them had to remain in agony for years in order to defeat the Dunyary. The followers of Kazertza and Korra were all on the brink of madness, but neither side would submit, and so they fought a bloody civil war.
Okay, goes a bit further then.
This is the last historical item we have for sale.
Okay.
The civil war between the green ur-quan, the followers of Kazertza, and their opponents, the death-dealing Korra, lasted for decades. It is likely that they would have annihilated each other were it not for a chance discovery by Kazertza, a precursor battleship. The vessel was huge, many times the size of the ur-quan's vessels. The precursor ship sliced through the Korra forces in days. The Korra were defeated.
Good.
However, in their victory, the Kazertza were humble.
Oh dear.
They realized that there was a chance, that they were wrong, and the Korra were right. Instead of destroying the Korra, the Kazertza let them go, directing them to make their way through the stars, traveling against the spin of the galaxy. The Kazertza would travel in the opposite direction, and when the two ur-quan forces met, they would fight again in ritual combat, with the precursor battleship given to the winner. Captain, this is happening here and now. The Kazertza, the ur-quan who enslaved Earth, are fighting their ritual battle against the Korra in a large area centered near the Clitoris constellation. If the Korra win this battle, Captain, the Kazertza will stand aside and let them kill us all.
That'd be bad.
We believe it is your destiny to prevent this from happening.
It's always
We regret
me.
to say that you have exhausted our supply of genuinely valuable information. However, we do have many thousands of useless facts, and that we will gladly sell you at a substantial discount. Are you interested? We thought not.
Yes. Now, God. Yeah, there's something I don't quite get about that. Ur-quan Korra go around the galaxy in one direction. Ur-quan Kazertza go around in the other direction. And shouldn't they meet up on the opposite side of the galaxy? Yet, where we are is where the sentient milieu was. So, I'm not quite seeing, unless there was a second doctrinal conflict in between this one and the very first, how the ur-quan could pass each other by without noticing. I mean, it's a big place, the galaxy, but still, they managed to meet up this time, so I'm not quite clear on that. Anyway, we gotta buy some fuel.
How much fuel do you wish to purchase?
Okay, fill my tanks.
Fuel transferred to your vessel.
Okay, we're all done here.
It has
Yes, we can talk to the Dunyary now.